Hey guys, it's Danny. Today we have quite an exciting video. We are going to talk about artificial light for orchids and plants in general using full spectrum grow lights, some advancements in the field that I just caught up with, and all sorts of other things as we will be testing out a professional plant grow bulb. And we're gonna go into a lot of details, a few setups that I came up with. As always, I will add additional articles and documentation down below in the description, so you can always access it and check out the stuff that I found. So that said, let's just get into the subject. Now, I've structured today's video in three main parts. In the first part, we're going to talk a little bit about photosynthesis, chlorophyll, the light spectrum, which is optimal for plant growth, a little bit of a theory. You also have a timestamp there on the screen. The second part will be product presentation. We're going to talk a little bit about Gemma. We're going to see the product, the specifications, what the company's claims are, and things of the sorts. And in the third part, I will show you the setups that I came up with. We're going to see the bulbs in action, and I will warn you now, what you see on camera is not what I see in reality. It's so different. My camera at least has major issues capturing the true light of these bulbs, so do keep that in mind. But I will tell you more about it throughout the video. The inspiration for this video actually came with Gemma contacting me yet again to tell me they have a new grow bulb that might actually interest me this time. Throughout the years, I've been contacted a lot by companies that manufacture grow lights, and I've turned them all down. Gemma is actually one of them. I initially turned them down a little more than a year ago, but this time I said yes because their new product is actually very fitting for me and the grow space that I have. So this video is also a product review for Gemma. They have sent this product absolutely free for me to try in a video. However, this is not a sponsorship collaboration. I have no agreement with them, but I am really excited to try out their product and actually test them long term, because today we shall start a really long-term project in which we will see the differences that proper grow bulbs make in comparison to just normal store-bought home bulbs, if you will. Also, just wanted to let you know from the beginning that Gemma actually created a discount code for 10% on all and every purchase. If after this video you do decide to purchase anything, the discount code is Orchid Nature. You have it on the screen. It's available until the 1st of January 2022. The code is not affiliate. It doesn't mean I earn anything. It doesn't actually mean anything. It is just a 10% discount, but of course, the company will see if the code is used and they will know that you guys came because of my video. But full disclosure, I don't get any payment if you decide to use that code. Righty then, with that said, let's just get started. Now, if you've ever researched a little bit about photosynthesis and what type of spectrum plants actually can utilize in order to photosynthesize, you might know the knowledge was that chlorophyll mainly absorbs blue and red wavelength. If we consider the visible spectrum of the sun as a rainbow, chlorophyll would highly utilize the blue and the red parts of that rainbow. And that kind of made sense since plants are green, which means they reflect the green wavelengths. For this reason, about 4 years ago when I first mentioned the grow lights and that I wanted to use them, many of them had that purpley, pinky type of color, which was actually a combination of red and blue wavelengths and very little everything else. And the idea behind them was that they were very efficient for photosynthesis, since chlorophyll would actually utilize those wavelengths, and it was believed that all of the other wavelengths were just unnecessary. As a personal note, when I moved into my new country and in this growth space, I actually planned on utilizing those grow lights. And I did a little bit of a test. I got myself some RGB LED strips, turned them on purple, and oh boy, I discovered that I could not handle it, to the point of actually being physically ill, which I will get to in this video towards the end. However, to my delight, in recent times, it has been discovered that plants actually utilize green wavelengths as well. Yes, they reflect part of it, but they also utilize a part of it in photosynthesis and in other activities which support growth. Now, the articles that I've actually researched are not all identical. So I will link you down below to all of them so you can research. But one of the articles suggests that only 5 or 10% of green light is reflected from a plant, and the rest of 90 to 95% is absorbed or transmitted to lower leaves. And apparently both chlorophyll and carotenoid pigments, which are the yellowish orangish pigments, are able to capture green light and use it for photosynthesis. It would appear that chlorophyll still absorbs blue and red a little bit more, or quite a lot more than green. However, green does appear to enhance plant growth, and not only that, it manages to penetrate deeper into the canopy and better reaches the leaves at the bottom of plants or trees. And even though the articles don't state that, I have a funny suspicion that what they're trying to determine is if the leaves throughout their lives and throughout their growth adapt themselves to the type of spectrum or light they receive. So I am wondering if they're suggesting that the top of the plant, the crown let's say, is better at absorbing blue and red wavelengths, and the bottom part of a plant is better adapted to absorb and utilize the green wavelengths. I'm not sure about that. I am continuing my research, and you can do so as well, but this is extremely good news for grow lights, because it means that we're not limited to those pretty ugly purple lights, but we can actually have a daylight type of grow bulb, which looks better but still does a good job in providing light for our plant. And the plant you've been staring at is under one of the Gemma grow bulbs, and it's not pink, as you can see. If you know my channel, you know that my grow light, which is not a grow light, has a little bit of a warm tint to it. It's what I like and it's what I find soothing. So far it has done pretty good with my plants, but is it optimal? And long term, will it actually give me the results that I want? Well, that is exactly what I will try to determine with these experiments and with trying out the Gemma bulbs today. So let's go to the bulbs and talk a little bit about them. So first, a few words on Gemma. They are a Swedish company specializing in LED plant bulbs. They're selling primarily to the European market, and at the moment they have a pretty unique line which has an even ratio of par wavelengths, which you'll have more details about in the description, thus producing a light much more suitable than the traditional pink lights. I have first been contacted by them about a year ago, and I had to politely decline. For some of you who are avid YouTube watchers, you might note that there are many growers, even orchid growers, which have tried that square Gemma light, which is very pink. I turned down on it. You'll understand why. And luckily for me, they did come out with something that I can use, and I'm just not going to waste. So the first box ticked, these are not pink grow lights, which for me is absolutely wonderful. However, this does not mean that they don't have any blue or red wavelengths. As you can see here from the spectrum, they actually do. But they also provide green wavelengths. And this combination actually translates to a sort of 5,500 Kelvin. This is the color temperature, and by all means it should be daylight. Now, since I already tried them, I can tell you that yes indeed they are pretty white, but they really don't look like your typical house bulb, and you'll see that. But definitely it is a massive improvement. Also, the power consumption of this bulb is 9 watt. So a second box ticked for me is consumption. Maintenance for these bulbs will not be greater than your typical, let's say, lamp bulb that you would buy from IKEA. And if you look here on the table, you will find some other very useful details if you are actually more knowledgeable about artificial light. To go just a little bit into the PAR thing, you will of course have more details down below in the description. PAR stands for photosynthetically active radiation, and it actually refers to the spectral range which plants can actually use. And in recent years, rather than relying on the output of a bulb, which was expressed in lumens or foot candles or things of the sorts, people have been referring to the PAR measurement. I'm not gonna go a lot into the details, I'm still researching it myself as well, but what we are interested in most is the spectrum of a bulb which can be utilized by plants. And Gemma actually suggests that they have a very good PAR value, which is expressed right here. What this means is that this is the spectrum which plants can actually utilize. The more, the better, pretty much. But one thing that I did want to stress with these grow bulbs was the fact that the term full spectrum to me was a little scary at first, because I thought, oh my goodness, am I going to introduce UV light in my life? And well, that's not the case. If you can see here, what we have is red, green, blue plus white plus near infrared. And if you visit the product page, which of course I will link you to down below, you will see there is no ultraviolet in these grow bulbs, which is good. I consider it to be quite dangerous if you don't use them properly. And they would necessitate protective gear such as glasses, maybe some sort of skin protection as well. But that's a whole different story. I'm glad to see that these bulbs do not contain UV. Or actually, they don't emit UV, that's what I wanted to say. Another ticked box for me is the socket. This is an E27 socket. Recently they came out with another 2 models, if I'm not mistaken. You'll have information down below, which are suitable for many household fixtures. And this is exactly the socket that I use in my IKEA lamps, which means that I can do a suitable, easy setup and quite affordable for you guys. And that's exactly what I will do. And as a last checkbox, the price. Well, they're not cheap. They're certainly more expensive than your typical bulb, and I can see why. They are special, and when you will see them in action, you'll understand why I say that, but they're not cheap. 4 of these are around 100 euros, which is quite an investment. However, considering that they only consume 9 watts per hour, we can absolutely subtract that maintenance price that other growth fixtures have. Also, as you can see, the bulbs themselves look quite different than your typical house bulb. To be fully honest, I'm not sure what this is, but it looks to me like some sort of heat dispersion system, since they do say that they contain near infrared spectrum. I'm guessing that these bulbs can actually produce quite a bit of heat, because infrared we cannot see with our eyes, it is mainly heat, and near infrared might just mean that these can actually heat up a little bit. But we're gonna see about that. So now that we talked a little bit about Gemma and about this product, let's just test it out, see how it looks like. I'm gonna show you the projects that I prepared and how I plan to assess performance in time. Now, the first grow setup that I prepared is with some African violet babies. The reason for this is that African violets have much faster growth than orchids, so I can start to do updates faster than, let's say, in a year's time. So here I have some African violet babies that I just separated from their leaves. They have been propagated through leaves, and what I did was split them into 2. On one side, I will use my typical IKEA bulb, which is a 5,000 Kelvin color temperature. As you can see, it is pretty white. And on this side, I plan to switch this bulb with a Gemma bulb. The plants on both sides come from the same plants. So for example, here I have a SM Lesginka. On this side, I have SM Lesginka again. It is practically coming from the same leaf, but there are 2 separate plants. So I tried to separate them half and half, and I will do this experiment on as many individuals as I can to draw some hopefully pertinent conclusions. I might actually add to this as I'm separating babies. I still have room left, but for now I will switch this bulb with a Gemma bulb. Alright, so here it is, and on camera it looks so pink, but in reality it really doesn't. And that's the thing with grow bulbs. Cameras actually perceive colors differently than we do, and in reality this light is quite white. I would say kind of cool white, but it does have reds in it. And can you see on that African violet right there? I'll show you on an orchid as well, but we can see the red or pink variegation being a lot more intensified. Well, this is because of the red spectrum. Also, take a look on the wall. Do you see this little rainbow formation? That is actually the spectrum, and I can clearly see the red and also the green and also the blue. So as you can see, there is quite a big visual difference between these 2. There is also a difference in angle. You can see that the angle of this grow bulb I think is narrower than the angle of this one, given this bulb actually has a diffusing plastic on top of it, which makes the light simply spread a little more, and you can see on the wall the difference here. And that is normal. These are bulbs created for your home. You want as much light in your home as possible. These are lights which want to focus on a certain surface. So that's why the difference. And that's why I actually positioned this lamp a little bit higher than this one. Okay, so I've been trying for 10 minutes to find some camera settings that will correctly display the colors that I'm seeing, but it's impossible. I cannot make my camera see what I see, but I'm hoping that this setting will give you a close enough idea. The light that I'm seeing is not pink or purple. I think the camera perceives it a little bit purple, but in reality it's more of a bluish type of light, but green and red at the same time. It's really hard to describe what I'm seeing, but it very much reminds me of aquarium light, which does have a lot of blue and red wavelengths, which are good for plants, but also they intensify fish color and plant color. But also, since it's an aquarium and you need to see inside it, they also have a lot of green wavelengths to just brighten up everything and pretty much allow you to see into the aquarium. That's why you don't see aquarium lamps which are just pink, or I hope you don't see them, because that would look awful, I think. That's exactly what I'm seeing here. It's like an aquarium. It's like all of the reds and the greens and even the blues and purple are accentuated, but overall I cannot really define the color that I'm seeing. And I have to say it is breathtaking, but I'll get to aesthetics in just a little bit. So here I have a setup which will change actually a little bit. I'm looking for a wire shelf to make another grow space here, but IKEA was out of stock. So I paired it with another IKEA shelf, which many of you already know. If you don't, I'll link you to it down below. I filmed, I think, how I assembled it, and I paired this setup with some IKEA Tertial Lamps, which you guys already know because I used them for a lot of time. So this video has quite a bit of a Swedish vibe, and you didn't see anything yet. P.S. I'm not an affiliate of IKEA, I just genuinely like IKEA. And the plants that I have here are very varied. I wanted to put some lower light plants, but also some higher light as well. So we do have a few African violets, and look how pretty the violets look in this light. I also have a chimera here, but I also put some phalaenopsis, as you can see, some paphiopedilums, also cattleyas, which are higher light orchids, also an ascocentrum, which is a higher light orchid. It's actually a vendacious orchid, so quite a lot of varying orchids and plants here. I want to test this out. I just want to see how they do under this light, although I am well aware that here I have two 9-watt bulbs. It typically is not enough for very high light plants such as cattleyas, but we'll see how this goes. And before we move on to the final setup, I wanted to show you this phalaenopsis, which I recently purchased. This is one of those orchids which produce a lot of anthocyanin. And under my LED panel, you can see how red it got. It really is that red. One thing that I read on Gemma's article on Gemma's website is that green wavelengths contribute to the production of anthocyanin, which would explain why my plants under my LED panels, which are very green, yellowish green, they do have quite a lot of anthocyanin. Now, this is not a bad thing. This is a natural pigment which orchids produce in high light. So for all intents and purposes, my LED panels are high light, but the spectrum obviously is not so rich in the blue and red, which might make a difference. That's why I moved this one here. I want to see if the quantity of anthocyanin will decrease, because theoretically these bulbs don't have as much green as my LED panels, so it will be very interesting to see if this one greens up. That's why I chose her, but as you can see, I chose all sorts of different plants, some oncidiums, a dendrobium moniliform here in the back, just a varied bunch, to which I probably will add when I get my wire shelf, which is a little bigger than this one. And as a final setup, I wanted to do something that people would actually love to put in their home. Not in a separate room for their plants, not in a room where they don't actually spend any time, but in their living room as a sort of centerpiece. So I came up with this setup, which includes an IKEA lamp, an IKEA stand, and some more IKEA stands. As I was saying, this video has quite the Swedish vibe. P.S. I'm gonna post a video on this channel probably next week on how I assembled all of these, and you can learn more about these products there. But the idea of grow bulbs, at least for me, is to be able to incorporate them in your home, in your life seamlessly. I was so hoping that one day I wouldn't have to drill my ceiling to put a lamp over my plants. I wouldn't have to do something that maybe is not aesthetically pleasing, especially if you have a home with already a sort of aesthetic vibe. And so far, really, all of these fixtures have been very awkward to work with. Even Gemma had that square lamp, which might be wonderful for plants, but if you want to put it in your living room, maybe it would just look awful. So the point for me was, give me a product that I can actually incorporate and moreover make it a centerpiece in my home. And this, in my eyes, looks like a centerpiece. I wanted to put together something that people would not feel uncomfortable putting in the living room and have the other members of the family think, oh, what's going on here? And well, here again I just placed various orchids. I have a Phalaenopsis, a Paphiopedilum, an Oncidium, some Ludicea jewel orchids which don't require a lot of light. I tried to stay away from highlight plants here because it's just a 9-watt bulb. I don't think I should expect the impossible, but these I think should be okay under this light. I tried as much as possible not to create some shade situations, but I think it ended up pretty well. Another thing that I did, more for fun than anything else, is plant a few lettuce seeds in 2 containers. One of the containers I will put under the Gemma grow bulbs and another one under my normal LED panel. I'm really curious to see if there is any difference in growth, and I chose lettuce because it grows super fast, so I can definitely make an update within a month or so. And before we end the video, a few words on aesthetics. So would I replace all of the lights in my grow space with something like this? I don't know, you guys, but let me tell you why. I'm one of those people who are really affected by blue light or cool temperature light. Ever since I was a kid, I just hated that type of light. And at first I just thought it was a preference, something aesthetical, and partially maybe it is, but partially is because it has negative effects on my mental well-being. I get anxious, uncomfortable, to some extent even panicky and fearful, so much so that sometimes I do have elevated heart rate because of that light. I am super uncomfortable with it. My comfort zone is yellows, amber, warm light in general. In my house, I only have warm light. Being that these bulbs are slightly blue, I'm nervous to even consider having them as the main source of light for my plants. But this might just be because I'm very sensitive to this type of light. This being said though, as an accent, being surrounded by warm light, I am absolutely mesmerized by how beautiful the colors on my plants look. So as a centerpiece or in a corner like I showed you with the other setup, I would absolutely use this. But again, surrounded by my comfort type of light and not as a main light source. I think this aspect is important as well because I'm sure there are other people who feel the same way that I do, and if this is important to you, you have to keep that in mind. I think grow lights are not the coziest types of lights, but they might actually be better for plants. So somewhere in there, maybe there can be a compromise. So far, I really like this. I have no issue looking at it, but all around me, there's amber light. So that makes it better. But I guess the more important question is, will this make a difference in my plant growth? I don't know. This is what I want to find out, and I'm really happy that Gemma contacted me again, even though I refused them once. So I really appreciate that. I didn't think they would contact me again, but yeah, there we go. You have links to articles, to these products and the Gemma website down below in the description. Research it yourself. And I hope you've enjoyed this video and you found it useful. I'll definitely keep you up to date. I think the first thing that will grow is the salad and then the African violets. So I think we're gonna see a grow bulb update within a month or so. So that said, thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. Hope you have a great weekend. Let me know down below what has been your experience with grow bulbs generally. If they made any difference for you, I'd love to know your experience. And with that said, you know the drill. Like or dislike this video below. Subscribe to my channel for regular orchid videos, tutorials, experiments, product reviews, all sorts of interesting subjects. If you wish to support the channel, do consider visiting the merch store down below. Currently, we have limited edition stuff. And also follow me on my socials because I do post quite a lot there as well, and also on my second channel, where you will see more African violet stuff. Alrighty, so with that said, I'm done. I'll see you next time. Bye.